Hey everyone, Pastor Curtis here with another quick question video. Savannah asked, in the story where the two women are fighting over the baby, why did the two women live together to start with? Shouldn't they have lived with their husbands? Well, Savannah, that's a really great question, and I have a quick answer for you. So, the story that Savannah is talking about is actually a Bible story found in 1 Kings chapter 3, verses 16 through 28. And it's a really fascinating Bible story. And so, I just want to read that full story to you and really see what story she's talking about. Verse 16 says, now two prostitutes came to the king and stood before him. One of them said, pardon me, my lord, this woman and I live in the same house, and I had a baby while she was there with me. The third day after my child was born, this woman also had a baby. We were alone. There was no one in the house but the two of us. During the night, this woman's son died because she lay on him. So she got up in the middle of of the night and took my son from my side while I, your servant, was asleep. She put him by her breast and put her dead son by my breast. The next morning I got up to nurse my son, and he was dead. But when I looked at him closely in the morning light, I saw that it wasn't the son I had born. The other woman said, no, the living one is my son, the dead one is yours. But the first one insisted, no, the dead one is yours, the living one is mine. And so they argued before the king. The king said, this one says, my son is alive and your son is dead, while that one says, no, your son is dead and mine is alive. Then the king said, bring me a sword. So they brought a sword for the king. He then gave an order, take the sword, cut the living child in two, and give half to one and half to the other. But the woman whose son was alive was deeply moved out of love for her son and said to the king, please, Lord, give her the living baby. Don't kill him. But the other woman said, neither I nor you shall have him. Cut him in two. Then the king gave his ruling. Give the living baby to the first woman. Do not kill him. She is his mother. When all Israel heard the verdict the king had given, they held the king in awe because they saw that he had wisdom from God to administer justice. That's a really fascinating story, and it actually has a happy ending. King Solomon used his newfound wisdom that God had just given him to find the correct mom between those two women. And he did that and gave the baby to the right mom at the end of the story. He came up with such a clever way of figuring it out, and I honestly think if you gave me 5 years with that same story but didn't tell me what he did, I think I still wouldn't have known how to figure it out after 5 years. So he came up with a really clever way of finding it out. So that still leaves our question though, why did these two women live in the same house? Well, if you caught that term that the Bible called them, it said they were prostitutes. And prostitutes in that time, in ancient time, were a little different than what you might think of today. But basically, they were women who had low morals, and so they were pregnant, and neither one of them were married. They likely lived in the same house because maybe they didn't have families of their own, or they might have even been concubines, a very famous Bible term you might have heard, of someone that they lived with, but they weren't wives. They weren't married, and so that drove them to be in this situation that they were in. But so then that's kind of the answer, Savannah, to your question. They were prostitutes. They weren't married. They didn't have husbands necessarily, and they were kind of in a low moral standing in their time. But what was the point of that story in the Bible? Why is that story even in the Bible? Well, it was to show That story is to show us the importance of godly wisdom. Way too often, people seek wisdom in science, in history, in politics, in law, or even in reading and studying books. But do you realize that Solomon found out where true wisdom comes from? He found out that wisdom comes from the Lord. I wonder if you've ever thought about that. God, the creator of the universe, has all of this wisdom, and nothing happens that he doesn't understand. Maybe you should spend more time praying and asking God for wisdom in your life than you do right now. Maybe you should start praying and asking for wisdom like Solomon, because he had so much wisdom since he knew it came from God. I hope this video teaches you the importance of godly wisdom and praying to God for wisdom. And I hope that it also answers your question, Savannah. God bless you all.